Let's see, Twitch usually goes live first, so let's double check that one. Uh-oh, I'm not logged in. Oh dear. Bicycles, there's no bicycles, it's a motorcycle. All right, okay. All right, I'm streaming to Restream. Okay, I appear to be on Twitch. So Restream is the only one who doesn't know yet. Let's see. Are we live? Okay, we're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube. All right, looks like we're up and running. So only Restream hasn't gotten the message yet. Let's refresh that. Maybe it'll figure it out. All right, here we are. So today I'm going to continue something I started over the weekend. No, yesterday. I decided to do away with the separation of all the different features into their own sort of sub-editors. I'm going to try to manage them all as a single list of components. So the idea is that you just select the component, no matter what kind of component it is, if it's a overlay or a cage, etc. Now there might be some issues. Obviously, arrows I haven't dealt with yet. There might be some issues. So, for example, with little killers, currently the arrow isn't included. So I can't select the arrow. So there's some components where I will, have to kind of enhance of how it knows what it is. Let me see. I need to refresh that actually. Oh. Yeah, I fixed that now. So the text gets highlighted correctly. For example, the little killer arrow does not. And I believe because the little killer features actually two parts, one in an overlay and one in an arrow. So ideally you edit those as one. So there's obviously the component, the editor should be smarter than the originating editor. But for now, I'm just gonna make it cosmetic as usual, yada, yada, yada. So we're still less than halfway through this conversion. And I'm going to go to a singular component manager, but the components still need an inspector because they have individualized properties. The difference is previously you selected your type of editor and then each editor had its own list of components. So that's going to get changed to a singular list of components, which you might, be able to filter, etc. But then each component, when you select the component, it shows its own editor. And the one thing I haven't quite figured out yet is where this inspector goes, because currently the inspectors are full-blown sort of editors with their own UI and all that. And I was thinking of actually moving the inspector into the component class, but I feel already a bit dirty just thinking about it. So I'm not sure if that's the right way to go, because obviously all components share a singular inspector thing, right? But it might still be helpful to be able to instantiate it. But the first step now is to actually get the components lists back rather than so the editor UI, this we actually don't need at all. So we're gonna have to do a bunch of work today in the editor itself, in the puzzle editor. So under init, we previously were pushing these, but now we're actually creating the manager on new, because the manager isn't actually going to have its own UI, So that's the one that has the add component and all that stuff. And it's going to handle the selected component and so on, but it's not going to actually render anything itself. So then open current puzzle is where we're loading the puzzles. And currently we're, like I did a quick try because underlays are very similar to overlays in structure, so it actually loads them in. And how these get basically selected. Now, this is something I would also like to move into maybe the manager. So maybe open puzzle should be as part of the manager, and the manager should be able to figure out how to split out the different component types. Or the component types themselves would say, hey, that's me. Or maybe each component has a function a load puzzle function. So that's the kind of code where currently I'm not super sure where it should live yet. It's, you know, it's the system in entity component system, but I haven't formally split it up like that, so I don't have a system to put this code on, even though it sure would be handy. So right now, add component will not. So previously, add component would say add component to UI, and add component to UI is the thing that would add the component to the components list. Now, the components list could be the one thing that's in the component manager. So maybe I do need a UI for the component manager as well, after all. So, 1 second. I think I just got an email from Mark. Might be worth making sure that's not super urgent. No. Okay, it's the invoice. All right. Well, I'll check that out later. So, could we set up a UI with the component manager? So in other words, we're kind of we're getting rid of the individual inspectors, moving all the component inspector stuff into the component manager. I guess the component manager would have its UI there. That whole thing would be the component manager UI. So I guess that makes sense. All right. So let's do that. So the component inspector is basically what's managing this stuff. So I'm guessing we have an attach and detach element here. And that should probably be high up on the list here. And we're going to do this and log those out. And then we'll have to figure out where this used to happen previously. So previously we would have inspectors pushed here, and then this would attach the so we wouldn't actually need this here. So here we would just do let manager does this, and then man dot attach element, and then for detach element we'd probably do that, but maybe we don't need to. So that should just fire up. Nope. Oh? Ah, yes. So this obviously is no longer relevant. Neither is selected inspector. Neither is this, nor this. So, and they all disappear basically. Okay. All right. So that hits attach element, which is going to be something along these lines, right? So this is going to be the components. Components. So this is blah da da, adding, deleting, and then we have the component inspector. Now this dot inspector elements, this is actually not how this is going to work. So for now, this is just going to be an empty div here. And we can do content component inspector here. All right. Let's just do this for a sec here. Okay. And maybe we'll move the button to the top. And we need to change the styling because the styling obviously is waiting for something. Tools section. Yeah, that's no longer the tools section. Let's just change it like that. And this is now the button dot add component. That's where the button controls go. All right. Set text content. Update inspector, component manager. Component manager, update inspector. So get component list element. Component list element. All right. Move that here. Something like that. Set selected. Update inspector. Add components. Set selected. Update inspector 487. Components element IDX. Because the components haven't been added, right? So where this was removed from here, okay. All right, we have our components here, and we probably not tool sections. So let's see, amp components, class components, class components, class components, new component manager. Wait, component manager, inspector, this name, no. So this is just a component manager, and this is inside the component manager. Here we go. All right. Okay, and now we can reattach all these kind of event handlers. So handle component, component change. So components UI. Components. Components. Get component list element. Yeah, so we have that up there. Update inspector components. Inspector. Selection. Move that down here. Like that. See if we broke it all. Okay, hover and selection still work. This does not work. Okay. So this should work as well. Then we have update inspector, component inspector, inspector elements, and inspector change. Okay. Handle inspector components move. Ooh. Don't even know what that means. So update inspector. Okay. Change. Mouse move. Handle inspector component. Handle inspector. Ah, that's what it was. Handle inspector. Handle component change. Handle components. Mouse move. Now we'll do this and this. Now there's only one components manager, so we don't need to do any of this anymore. And see what happens. Okay. So that gives us a hover on these components. Then we can select them. Okay. And the toString, we want to update that as well. For the components themselves to make it short. So cage component. Overlay inspector, overlay component. Here we go. Nope, not here. Here. So cage component toString, cage component. Man, it's so tiny. Cage component. All right. I guess we could just hide all this stuff. So if I do something like setting tool editor, so if I do something like setting tool editor, and then what was the controls info dot controls info display none. I hope the resizing would take that into consideration. New setting tool editor, setting tool editor, controls info, controls dash info, dot setting dash tool editor, display block. All right. There we go. All right. We can figure out later how we're gonna visualize that. Interestingly enough, that doesn't change it. Because the setting is enabled. Okay, interesting. All right, that gets us all these components. I don't know if I can hover on the list, but no, that's fine. Sweet, okay. And now from here, the next step will be to visualize the specific inspector for each component. So each component has its own inspector. Should this be a separate class? Maybe, maybe not. What does the inspector do? Well, the overlay inspector right now does very little. Let's look at the cage inspector. This we don't need. This we do need, yes. And then where does it actually, okay. That's really all it does at the moment, isn't it? Okay. Now, the point of this is, that's all nice and good, but we need some extra code to actually transform data, right? Because the data in the inspector might not immediately match up to what the element needs. Like, we're not just gonna edit a string and then put it straight in there, right? So, and currently all of this was on the component inspector. So now we could move it into, how do we subclass the class stuff? Because I'm basically figuring out to do this as a static property on the class. So this would live on C. So I would say something like C dot inspector elements, like that, basically. And we would do something like intent base inspector, something like that. And to actually use it, we need all this stuff, right? So attach element, detach element. Okay, so this is the part that handled the components list, which we now no longer need to manage. So we really only care about this bit and some bit down here. So we can either put this into the base class as a class method, or we put it into the manager directly. One sec. Oh, brain freeze. So let's have a look at the overlay component, cage inspector. Let's get rid of some of this spamminess. So in the component manager, we want to get rid of all this spam now. Basically all of it, right? Maybe leave that in because that's not really implemented yet. Okay, if I refresh now. Okay, and then the places where this inspector needs to be updated is, well, is it just update inspector? Update inspector. I don't think the constructor name makes any sense here. Component, yeah. So this is no longer relevant. We're not subclassing the component manager. All right. So this is getting updated a lot. But this is actually not where we want to update. Here's just where we're updating this listing. We're not actually updating the component inspector, right? So I'm wondering if we should get rid of this in some way. Set selected, update inspector. I think it's only in those two places. Ah, wait, we're not searching in the right place. Let's see. By the way, thanks for everybody who's joined me on Patreon. I've just launched the new tier and I'm about to send my first post probably tomorrow. It's mostly just a welcome post, but I'm basically talking a little bit about what are the big things I'm working on at the moment and what I'm planning for the near future. I hope it'll be the first of many. All right, so I think all of this is, I'm starting to feel like I need to get rid of the deprecated code. A lot of it is really old now. Like all this old section stuff is completely irrelevant. There might be some value to the line stuff, maybe. But maybe I can just get rid of this stuff. Handle component editable line, like that. The cages stuff is definitely deprecated. Wait, did I never really moved all the text editing up. Yeah. All right, let's not do that right now. I gotta get rid of it eventually, but not right now. So what I really need to do is right now the update inspector function doesn't really do what it says on the tin. So I think we should temporarily get rid of it or rename it and then like expunge the old behavior from places. I think the only thing right now it does is, well, this doesn't do anything and it's literally just selection, right? So it should really be part of set selected, basically. So let's do this for a sec. And then, set selected. Set selected. Set selected. Do we need a second function or not? That's the question I have right now. Components value. If so. We basically do this. Components element, idx components element dot value. Components dot index of selection. We don't need to do this at all here. And we don't... Yeah, so I think we can just make this a one-liner. And then I don't know... And yeah, we don't need to do this here either. But the inspector is not a function. Okay. Where are you trying to call it from? 417. Yeah. Because it only changes when you select, when the selection changes. So that's all we need to do. Sweet. So set selected is really where it's at. Yeah, selection is quite important actually. So then the next step is to render the inspector. And where would this, was this, I think this was done in the editor previously, right? So if I go to the editor, under init, no, under attach element. So the inspector was created ahead of time. So that's the other difference. Previously I had all the inspectors in the DOM and then I was just hiding and showing them. But now I'm actually thinking of ripping the inspector out every time you select an item and putting a new inspector in. And to do that, we actually want to know if the previous type of inspector was different. Do we? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So, all right, let's do this for a sec here. Also, lock. And now we've added this, right? It's going to be a relatively short stream since it's, you know, I just want to squeeze one in because sometimes when I don't stream in the morning, I don't stream at all. And I was doing some other stuff. So cell.inspect elements undefined. And it would be cell.base constructor dot believe. Nope. Space base constructor. Nope. Base prototype. We have two things, right? Base prototype and base constructor. And I'm not entirely certain which one I want. I don't know what I want. One of those two. So it's not base constructor? What was it then? I thought we had dot base constructor. Constructor. Really? Screw you, you've passed me. God, really? That was misspelled the whole time. Huh. How many times? Curious now. This is all over the place, obviously. Ah. All right, as it's gonna be until I'm done refactoring all this stuff, it's gonna remain a little bit of a mess. Just keep an eye on all the different chats and platforms. Make sure I don't miss something, because I don't trust any of the tooling in between, to be honest. Okay, so our base constructor is here. Our base prototype is there. So we should be able to get this off the base constructor. Something like that, right? Okay. And the inspector elements were previously used how? This. Okay. And now they're used how? Let's call this manager UI, manager UI. Component inspector. Okay. So we should be able to do something along these lines. This comes out of here. Component inspector. Okay. Something like that. Okay. And I think there is a MDN empty element. Is there a way of emptying out an element? Remove element children. Don't tell me I have to loop through them. Remove all children. All children. Do I actually have to loop through them? Seriously. However, it is not recommended because it doesn't remove the event handlers of the child nodes, which might cause a memory leak. Yeah, okay, we don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Okay. So inspector element while. So I think we're gonna do a dot attach inspector. This doesn't make sense here. This makes sense inside the components, but not in the manager. Okay. Should we tie this to that? I'm tempted to do that. Well, let's call this one update inspector then. This one makes a lot more sense. This makes a lot more sense. So obviously we need to get all our references again. While, and I think I just saw this here somewhere. While inspector element dot children dot first child dot move the dot length that should be 0, 0 anyways now. Okay. In case we need some other props off of that. Or let's just do that. Okay. And then we should be able to just do a framework.create object.assign empty object spectre elements. Wait, spectre elements is a spectre elements is an array. Is it? I'm not certain. I think it is. Spectre elements. Should this be an object or an array? If it's an array, I can determine the parent. If it's a singular object, I don't have to care what's in it. Just trying to think. I mean, in something like Unity, this would be done with a higher level definition, where it would actually know what these things are, and they wouldn't necessarily be just a list. For now, I'm fine. I'm going to create a new object and put that in the children of that new object. So parent will be inspector elem, and children will be inspector elements. This is not going to be confusing at all. And then I'm going to output this again and see if that works. I think that's changed. Okay. Can I override that? That's the question now. So cage component. I'll just call it cage component inspector. And overlay component. We call that overlay component inspector. Whoops. Component inspector. No, it does not override. Because we're looking at the base class. So we don't actually want to look at the base class. We want to look at the constructor. So to compare, let's put these side by side. But what we really want is this guy. The problem is, does that inherit? I don't actually know. I think it might not, because I think only the prototype inherits. So, component inspector. If I do this, but one of them does not have it, I think it will fail. Overlay component, cage component, overlay component won't have it. So JavaScript inherit class properties. Without using modern JavaScript, that's just a question. I mean, I could put it on the prototype. Is that a problem? Probably not, right? So if I do this, no, not this, what am I doing? I go to the component and I make this on the prototype. And then I go to the cage component, also put on the prototype. And for clarity, update this as well. And then instead of these space prototype. Do these make more sense? So we have constructor base prototype, cell.prototype, cell.base prototype. I think it's cell.constructor.prototype. Ugh. Ah, wait, actually, maybe we don't need any of this, right? Because it'll just be this now. And they won't be a separate copy each, right? they be static? Would they be static or would they be copies? I think they would be static. Like if I modify this on the prototype, it would update across all of them. So these are overlay component, cage component. Wait, because we're not using that. So component inspector, cage component inspector, overlay component. So it does inheritance. We're just gonna proceed with it for now and then deal with the fallout later if I'm wrong about this. Then we'll just turn this into a function that returns whatever we need. Cage component, overlay component, cage component, overlay component. Okay. So then the question becomes, how do we update the things in it, the properties in it? Do we want to do this here or do we want to do this on the individual classes? Let's look how we used to do it. We had an update inspector here. So if I take this, turn this into another function and so sort of create inspector or get inspector elements. So if I do something like get inspector elements instead, and then just have a return, just to be super explicit about everything. And then we can change this to cell.getInspectorElements. Okay. And then we update this across the parents and children and all those fellows. Here. Like that. And we do the same thing for cage component. All right, that should still work. Update inspector, set selected, update inspector. Okay. Gonna swirl this a little bit to mix the tablet in there. But now I have a little spill and this stuff is gonna get sticky. So I better wipe it up. This is the exciting content you're here for, I'm sure. But that's that's how the sausage is made. All right, so let me just see, because the numbers don't update very well over here on this view. Wait, over here. Hey guys, say hi in the chat. I'm seeing you lurking, both on YouTube and Twitch. Okay, so the next step is to update these inspector components, right? So we had, did I just wipe that component out? Okay, it wasn't very, so I have to think about when and where I want to update that component. So obviously when we're loading it in, we need to update it, but also when it gets edited. And who should be doing that? Should it be, you know, I think I have like a set prop on the component. So there should be, there isn't. Okay, maybe there should be. So I think there used to be somewhere. Maybe it's in the inspectors. So let's see if I look at the component inspector. Do we have a set prop? No. Get input component. Okay. So these I think I can now mostly wipe out. Like none of these are, handle inspector change, handle component change. That's the one we don't care. This is the one, update props. So update props comes from here. So update props should be able to update its own inspector, which includes holding onto a reference of the inspector, I'm guessing. So maybe the get inspector elements should be actually instantiating the inspector object, the DOM element, and should manage an instance of it across all the classes. And now I'm thinking I could actually take advantage of the inheritance here. Hey, Andy. Thanks for saying hi. Yeah, I appreciate the company. It gets lonely in this office of one. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a component in the an inspector here. Since returning back off update inspector here, we're actually doing the create element, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the create element here without children and without a parent, right? And just gonna set this up as the inspector. And then I'm going to assign this to c dot, and we should probably configure this, c dot inspector equals undefined. Then I should be able to do this and return it. And then what the other classes will do down here. So instead of doing this, we're going to call our inherited thingamajig dot base like this, right? We're not going to use the cage inspector. We're using this thing. There's a fly somewhere in my field of view. We're going to do this. Let inspector equals this, and not inspector elements. Create inspector or get inspector. What do we call it? Create inspector. Because now it's actually creating. Create inspector. And now it actually makes sense to log that out as well. And here it makes sense to output something like this dot base constructor dot name. And then this is create inspector, and then we can do something like framework dot create we'll do this. All right. Then we can just return this. Something like that. We'll clean it up in a second. And then we do the same thing for the overlays. And now in the manager, here, we're going to call let inspector equals let inspector equals, let's just do this quickly. And then we should be able to say something like you know how it is with the algorithms, they love the engagement. Hey, Sophie. This is all JavaScript. I'm basically just making a very, very, very fancy website. And like most JavaScript programmers, I'm ignorant to its limitations. So I tried to do anything in it, including creating this sort of Unity 3D engine-esque property component inspector system. All right, I want to log this out for a sec. So right now it's not attached to anything. So we have the inspector component, yada, yada, yada. So we should be able to do just this. Dot append child. Hurrah, hurrah. And we should have this. Overlay component inspector, and now scroll up. Cage component inspector. Okay. And if I look at it in more detail, it should have its parent component. Component inspector, yeah, it's a little overly nested. Yeah, so I've built the whole thing in JavaScript, but it is also available on YouTube, iOS and Android. So, and it's the same code base. I'm just transpiling. I'm cross-platforming it with Cordova and those kind of systems. So there's a Steam version, if it loads. There's an Android version and there's an iOS version. But Apple's site is slow. And now I'm working on new features for, well, all of them really. But obviously, I do my primary work on the web part of it because it's just easier and quicker. But I did Unity work 10 years ago or so, and entity component systems and those kind of editor infrastructures kind of stuck with me. So every now and then, it just comes out in me. So now the advantage is building the inspectors is part of each individual component, but we have assistance from the base component, so we can create some commonalities, right? So let's just, I think we did that with the cage inspector. So in the old cage inspector, we had create inspector, cage component, create inspector, cage inspector. We had this. So let's just throw that in there. I don't think create element can take an array. I'm not sure. Because I wouldn't want to have to individually attach these to it. Because create element is downwards looking, not upwards looking, I think. Let me see. If I pass in an array into create element, what will it do with that? Yeah, it doesn't check for an array. So either I do it like this, or I rebuild the base component. Ugh. Well, for now, I'm just gonna do it like this. For now. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna arrayify it. So it's gonna be something like this. Component, no parent, just two components in a listing, and then for each ops framework.create element object.assign parent vector element. I think that's all I need. And that's that. I think. Boom, it's not. Missing comma. Nope. Unexpected closing brace. One too many. What is it with off by one errors? Here we go. All right, setting properties of undefined. All right. Create inspector. Let's see what we got here. Inspector element. 545. Ah, just misspelled that. Okay. Here we go. And what's the structure of this? We have this and we have that. All right. It's a good start. And this is not what it used to look like, right? We probably want to fancify this a little bit. So it'll probably be something like label. Value and children. Something like that. All right. Let me just add that to the overlay as well. So the overlay should work in a similar fashion. Cage overlay. So this is an overlay component. And well, for now we can do the same thing, right? But for the overlays, let's have a look what they're supposed to have in the legacy editor. Oh. I assure you my screen is plenty large. That's very strange. Oh, probably a zoom factor? Yes, it was a zoom factor. All right. So, overlays. What do we have? We have a position, we have a size, we have a shape, yada, yada, yada. Okay, now, do we want to keep it like this? It's a little, for now, why not? Why not, right? So for now, we're just gonna do it very, very shilly and quickly. So instead of label, we're gonna have row. Nope. We're gonna have row. Row. Call. Let's just call it that one. Center row, center hole, and really misspelling this so many different ways. Then we'll have something like width, height. Let's just start with a couple simple ones. Don't center row call. So we definitely need a function that translates from these to the internal properties, right? Okay, let's, I just scrolled to a different window, didn't I? Yeah, let's get rid of some of the spam. So we probably don't want this, and we don't want this. Create inspector element. Inspector element, we don't need that. Okay, create inspector that happens in the base class. Wait a second, why does it happen? This should not be component. This is curious. We want the opposite, not the base constructor. I'm a little silly. All right. Yeah, when does base constructor doesn't actually make sense in that case. Okay. And that's how they render. All right. Well, we ran out of space real fast. Okay, so cage component, overlay component. We'll get rid of this. We'll probably have to, you know, line them up and minify them and yada, yada, yada. So for example, This will probably be yeah, I don't actually want to do this right now. Let's do a mini styling here. So we want to have something like component manager components, not component, current section. That is all rubbish. So we want inspector label float left width. Actually, I don't know if I should use flex on the labels. Is that what I should be doing? How about we do display flex direction row. And that's kind of what it's for. Okay. Now, why is the input so large? Width percent, font size 0.8 rem. Make it fairly small. And I still have a giant input element. And I can't see where the input element gets its size from. Didn't I remove the inspector already? Ah, this element I did not. All right. Inspector label input. How do I make it conform to my settings here? Display flex? Nope. Let me think. This is label input flex. When it's contained within the thing, that's what I want. Margin 0 auto, container width 100. And form elements with flexbox. Yeah, come on. I shouldn't have to figure this out from scratch. Form row label. Form row display flex, justify content, flex, and the content. I think flex direction row still makes sense, even though they're not using that. Flex 1, maybe. Perhaps. Nope. Nope. Why is it pushing over the edges of the container here? So if I say something like flex 2, the problem is the text in the label isn't its own element, and I don't want to add more markup. The whole point of the associated label thing is that I wouldn't have to do this sort of stuff. All right, where does it get its width from? Come on. It won't tell me? Okay, where's it getting the width from? Why is it this size? This is the right size, but then this is pushed out. There's something doing this. Here they have the label separate from the input. I'm using flaps input nested put inside label. Come on, give me something. Do I have to add additional biddies there? Yeah, everybody is not nesting them. Nesting input inside. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. Maybe that's not how it's supposed to be done anymore. It used to be... Oh, we used to do it. Because then you save all that extra association with name, etc. Yeah, so we can position it around. Nested label with flex. Space nested input nested inside label. My Google Foo isn't what it used to be. I mean, I can force do it without the thing. I mean, I can always just do something like with I don't know, 20%. It'll force it to fit, right? And then we can do justify content flex end, and it'll do something like that. And then we can do padding left 1 rem. Margin left 1 rem. Okay. Vertical align center or middle. Let's try both. Like a USB drive type thing. Yep, that's not right. CSS label vertical align. Yes, please. Do I really have to do that? Well, that's not working. Yeah, I don't think that's doing anything useful. Padding 0.2 rem 0. Don't think we need left and right padding. And then font size, look at these. Font size 0.8 rem. Is it the same as the label? I think it is. Don't really want to make them much smaller. It's gonna get quite squishy to get it all in there. I mean, obviously these should be side by side. So I'd have to change the thing for that. So, okay, let's just do that then. So we're gonna do something like this. Put these two in there. And then we'll give this some sort of class. Class. And what do we call it? Duo. And this would be row col. And then for the styling purposes, let's see. Oh, that actually already kind of sort of works, right? Then we can kind of do the same thing with these. So we can do size, and then we'll do width, height, height. And it's kind of like that. Nope. Width, height. What did I mess up? I messed something up. Ah. I need another one of these guys. When did I delete that one? Okay. Oh. All right, here we go. And now this percentage obviously is a little silly. So we can do inspector label.dual input and make it 50%. There we go-ish. And we can do label font size 0.6, make it smaller, like that. Okay, and then we could probably also do this, make that smaller. Good enough for now. Good enough for now. Then we can make this a bit bigger again. And ideally dual would have all the children kind of aligned as well in a different way. But for now, this will work. And now basically we want this action to update our components here. And to do that, we need to figure out where that happens, right? So we now in the components manager want to be able to say, hey, update thyself, right? So we have this and this. Handle component change. Get component list element. Let's see. Does that actually trigger? Okay. Inspector components. This is completely handle inspector component move. Spec. Jesus. Can't even read that. Inspector components move. And we... Ugh, I'm editing the wrong thing. We should be in the manager. All right. Handle components, mouse move, handle components change. Okay. Handle components, mouse move. Handle component change. Okay, so this we definitely don't want to lock anymore. Handle component change. Set selected, and then selection should update the inspector. So set selected. And then we have update inspector. Set select update inspector. Boom. Update inspector. And updating the inspector should load in the values. And this we cannot do here. Okay. So this would have to have something like p update inspector. And we should have access to the inspector from here as well. Update inspector. So if cell, we do all this. Well, this we still do. We clear out the inspector. We'll do this. And we can just equals undefined, I guess. I don't know how that works. And then cell.update inspector. Okay. Update inspector is not a function. So this should obviously live in the base class as well. Otherwise, we cannot rely on it. Create inspector, update inspector, component, update inspector. Boom. Overlay component, create inspector, update inspector, create inspector, update inspector. Okay. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this needs to be referenced from this, which we don't have access to from our. Ow! I was pulling my sleeve down and I ripped my headphones out of my ears. Okay, that was unpleasant. Ears still attached though. We're good. We're good. So I think the least thing we can do is here is return this. So then here we would call the base class. Dot base prototype. Overlay inspector, overlay component. Inspector. Let inspector. Because we also have to deal with situations where we're currently not showing any UI, so we need to know if we're attached and be able to exit out and so on. Okay. I don't know if this is the right architecture, to be fair. I'm feeling like I might be barking up the wrong tree. Okay, well, that gets us the elements, and we should be able to get our local properties. Let's just match them up quickly. So I click this, and we have these as our local properties. Okay. Then we want to be able to do something like inspector elem dot. Oh yeah, and these should. Do they have data set? Data prop, yeah. So we should be doing something like query selector data equals data prop equals row. Let's just manually do it. Dot set, no, dot text content equals props dot center 0. Center is this, yeah. And then call would be center 1 and width and height. Width, height. And something like center here is already an example of why we can't do an automatic mapping. At least not, well, not yet. In the future, if we have certain custom types, maybe we can. Okay, well, that doesn't work. Let's just see. Ah, dot value. We're dealing with inputs here, not with base elements. Okay. Okay. So that's updating. That's a good start. So then the next start is being able to edit this and it coming back. And this was previously handled by some kind of change handler. Here we go. Handle change inspector. Is that the only one? Select what? No. No, not inspector. Change. Handle component change. Handle component change. Handle component change. No, it's also not what we want. Input handle inspector change. Ah, handle inspector change. Update props, update inspector. So the question is, should these event handlers be managed by the component manager or by the components? Because the components could do clever things like, hey, this is a new way of editing things, right? Because the component manager, no, any other editing happens elsewhere, right? Like drawing and clicking on the board, that already happens in the components. Well, it doesn't right now, does it? Yeah, maybe that's the first thing we should actually... Because this, yeah, that's currently broken. We need to bring that back. That's kind of important, and we shouldn't lose that functionality. So right now, a cage component does not have access to these events, apparently. But maybe it does. Let's find out. I think I implemented the forwarding already. Update inspector. Handle input down. No. So, component manager. Let's also silence these again. Yeah, okay, these also need to be cleaned up here. Where's my phone making noises? It should not be making more noises. I did a beep. Yeah, it must be this one. Well, I'm streaming right now. I cannot talk about the mug I got. So. This, we wanted to forward, right? So input down. Yeah, so the problem is we could, yeah, so if cell, we can say cell dot if cell and type of cell dot handle input down equals function. You can do this. So we forward the event if to the selected element, which means we couldn't click for non-selected, which is okay. Okay. And there it is. seeing it right there. Ah, that did not mute at all. Sorry about that. I could have sworn I pressed the mute button. I'm gonna mute for this though. That's better. I'm getting hot now. Ugh, all this brain activity. So, if I select this and then I click this, handle input down, handle input down. All right, let's spell it right everywhere. How many input downs are firing? Okay, now the components don't have access to the manager at the moment. So add component, add component. What's the push component? Add component, manager is this. And then cage components, cage inspector, cage component. Here we can say console.log this.manager. And then we can jump through all the hoops. So we click this, click this. So we have access to selected, etc. So now the question is, are we clicking on our own lonesome self or somewhere else? Okay, so let's bring this up. And up with all of these things. Boom, click. Get input cell is not a function. Let's just put that on the manager. I think it deserves to live on the manager. And over here, this would go under the, probably under helpers. So we can do let manager plus this. And then we can probably do this as well. I don't know if we even need hover, but it's all here. Okay, clear it, select, click. So we have a cell, blah, blah, blah. All right, la-di-da-di-da. Now, what we don't have is a previous selection. So we don't know if the selection has changed. So I think we need access to that information. Either that or we call the input earlier, but we can't really do that anymore. All right. All right, it's not too hard, not too hard. Set selected, boom. We really only have to do this. For now. So we need this to be able to know that we're not erasing a cell instantly the first time we select a cage. So we need to verify that they're different and all that stuff, right? So if cell selection and if we have a selection and a cell, And here we can skip this because we know we have a selection. If this is different, if previous selection equals this, okay, basically. If previous selection is this, that means we didn't change selection. If hover is undefined, we're adding a yada yada, right? And then we'll do a manager.set hover this. If hover equals selection, we'll get rid of selection because we know that selection is this. Then this dot remove cell, and then manager.set hover. If hover equals this, remove cell, set hover nothing. And then manager.update inspector, but we skip that for now. So click a cage, do this, delete, delete, select another cage, delete, add, select, delete, delete, blah, yada, yada. Okay. And then update inspector. Well, that won't do anything yet, but we seem to be moving in the right direction. Okay. All right. And let's get rid of some more of this stuff. I think we can skip the create inspector calls now. Maybe even the update inspector. Okay, overlay component, update inspector. Overlay component, well, we'll put it back soon, but I think I'm just gonna clean it up now so I can take my lunch break. And then when I come back, it will all make sense-ish, hopefully. Okay, so I can select this, I can add cells. Actually, let's look at one with the cages that have actual values. Yeah, so the value still moves, so that's all still correct. That's very nice. We might as well, okay, well, we might as well update that inspector aspect. So we have cage inspector, we have update inspector, we have cage inspector, create inspector, value, and then we should have something like this. So that should be cage component, update inspector, do this, value. And I don't actually know what the props are. Props dot cage value. Except not, because we actually want to parse that. So we actually need to do this. Okay. Something like that. 20, 27. And editing it doesn't update right now. Where was that managed? Overlay inspector, cage, inspector, update inspector. I think this was handled higher up, right? Component inspector, handle inspector components move. Handle inspector change. Ah. Handle inspector change. So component manager, inspector, update inspector, no. Handle inspector change. Component manager, do this, do this. Well, so far so good. Handle inspector change. This happens during attach element, so it would happen after create inspector. So find.create inspector. Handle inspector change. Are we in the right place? I believe so. So if I do this and do this, I get handle inspector change events in the component manager. Okay. Does that work? What do we get? We're hitting update props, which exists on the component. Good to know. Ah, wait, where was it? Wait, what? Okay, so as far as I know, update props is not firing here. So update props is not firing. All right. Let's investigate. Update props. Component. Wait a second. What's going on here? Whoops. If I select this, right, and then change this to a 3, we're getting handle inspector change here. Then select it. That's the only thing I can see here that would stop this from going through. Hey, allocate. Oh, no, you are a spammer. All right, I've got to do the whole thing. So to ban them. And I think that deletes the message as well. All right. Not too bad today. A few YouTube spammers. Maybe some of those banned keywords or whatever have helped. Okay. Let's refresh this, select this, and make this a 3. Update inspector. We have a selection component here, and then we are calling update props on it. This is very, very, very strange. Because update props exists in the parent component. Does it also exist in the actual child component? Update props. Ooh, it does. Oh, that's why. Okay. So okay, so there's a focus thing going on. Well, that's not too bad, actually. All right, so we need to worry about this. Let me put this as a to-do item. When input loses focus after typing digit letter. Okay, but at least now we can modify these again. And does this work also for unlabeled cages? So if I take something longer and stick that in there, it works. Go to a different one, do that there, go back to this one, delete it, go back to this one, delete it. Okay. Oh, and now things are broken. Input property, insert reading insert before get box with transform. I think we might have to update elements. Cannot read properties of null. Get box with transform. 98. 98. Parent node elem. So we have a reference of something that doesn't have a parent node, all right? If canonical properties of null, reading insert before. Okay. If parent node is not equal to null, then we do these. And all right. But there's actually a concern of why are we even trying to do this on something that obviously doesn't exist. So 454. We added some lines, so it's got pushed down. Components, RC hit des. So it's looping through elements that no longer exist, which means when we are... So there's a place where we're updating the cage, and in this case we have to completely re-render it because our editor does not know what to do, how to remove, what elements need to be added or removed when, for example, the value of a cage changes, because there's two. There's a background and a foreground element. The cage value edges slightly wider. I've seen one puzzle where cages were based on the product of their digits. So I had some cage large values. Well, yeah, I mean, we're very far from actually tweaking cosmetics yet. This whole UI might not work like that. And, you know, you can still put in big values. They just get pushed off the side. You might even have like a pop-out floatable edit inspector or something. Remember, if this is supposed to be mobile compatible, on mobile you just won't have more space. In fact, layouting update is coming anyways. So what I'm suspecting is wherever I'm doing the re-rendering, so let's see, cage value, cage component, update props. So if value gets changed, we're doing a rebuild SVG. After we're doing a rebuild SVG, we're doing a get alums. The question is, why would alums not be correctly updated after a rebuild SVG? Build a log. Let's see if we have different length before and after redrawing them. So, going here, giving it a value. I'm guessing these are objects then. Okay, object dot keys dot length. Do this again. Select this, make this a 1. And now it's a 3 afterwards. God damn it. We're rebuilding the SVG, but we're not removing the original SVG. Wait, let's do this here. So I do this. 3. Remove. Select. So the other cages are gone somehow. I don't entirely know for sure right now how that actually works. So if I go here, make this a 1. We're rebuilding SVG, and that gets started from 696. That's 6. And what does rebuilding do? It renders the cage. elem.remove. Elem.remove. So this should remove the elements. Oh, wait. Yes, I'm removing them, but I'm still keeping them referenced here. Okay. I think I know what I need to do. Keys. Elements for each key. I think I just need to do delete balance key. Right? So if I select this now, I do this. It goes from 0 elements to 3. Because it's 0 after I've already deleted them. And if I go back, it goes from 0 to 1. Okay. And in fact, we'd want to do this to be more accurate. So 1 to 3, 3 to 1. All right. I think that fixes that. Good. Sometimes I leave these things for later and then I just scratch my head and have no clue what's going on. I don't know. Always gotta reduce that log spam, otherwise can't do anything. 5, 8, 6. All right, that seems to work. Let's get a bigger value in here. Jumps up there, goes down there, delete it, back. Yeah. So the only issue we have right now is the focus loss. You know what? I'm on a roll. Let's see if we can fix that as well. I think this used to be handled by the key handlers, which may no longer be operational. Let's see where they are. So key handlers. Key handlers. Do this. So we get to here, but we lose focus. Why do we lose focus? We don't want to lose focus here. Return true. Whoops. Thanks for the support, by the way, guys. Awesome numbers. Why are we losing focus here? Where? Oh, I have a suspicion. Am I rebuilding the inspector at this point? That would screw up. That would definitely screw it up. I think. Yeah, I think it would. Yeah. And in fact, I've mentioned earlier that I wanted to make sure I'm not rebuilding an existing inspector. Yeah. So we should not willy-nilly recreate the inspector, obviously. So first of all, update inspector. So we have ref cell. So if I go here, then do this, update inspector. So if the selection is the same as the previous selection, then we shouldn't do any of this stuff. We only should do the last part. All right. It's annoying that when I put something off to do later, I actually have to do it later. Oh, no, no. Because it does this here. We only do this if these are different. Component list value. If selection is unequal to previous selection, only then do we erase things. If we have a selection, then we update the inspector. If selection is unequal to selection... Okay, wait. Yeah, that's the only thing we care about, right? If the selection has changed, then we do all these things. If the selection has changed, we do these things, okay. So we kind of do this in here, like that. We already know it's changed. We do all of these things. So if it's changed, we remove it. If we have a selection, we add the new stuff in. But also if we have a selection, we also need to update the inspector. So if it hasn't changed and we have a selection, we still update the inspector. Because it's asking us to update, right? So if I now do this, I can type this, woohoo! I can remove it. I can type. Right. And I can remove it. And I can edit. And I can seamlessly switch, and it automatically updates the right inspector. So if I'm on a component with a size, now obviously I can't update the size yet. I want to be actually be able to drag these. That's going to come in the future update. Okay, that's very good actually. That fixes a bunch of issues. I was already, I don't want to say anticipating, more like dreading. Okay. And that's at 550. And I have so much dead code already. I've barely even gotten started. I'm the master of deprecating code 2 seconds after I've written it. Alright, I'm very happy with this. We've got cage editing back. Almost all of it, actually. Pretty much, well, everything we've had previously. The UI obviously needs a lot of work. But you gotta get the basics up and running. Do I have any other super spammy things here? Okay, let's have a quick look at something more complex. So that updates here. We have these guys. Different. We have the hover effect. We have hover effect here. It's mixing different kinds of components now. Now here, for example, that's exactly what I want to be able to do. Like, oh. Like, wait a second. This one and this one are in the same position. They're actually on top of each other. You know, that's the sort of thing you don't see unless you have a listing of the actual components. So in F-puzzles, for example, you wouldn't easily be able to select something that's underneath something else. So ideally, you just have to click on them, but for backup, you have that list. Whoop, what did I just click on? What did I just click on? Ah, yes, I made Let's Peek a link to Patreon. Okay, to remember that. It's maybe not a good design choice, because people might not know what's happening. Okay. Now, whoops. Do I want to do something like letting it select given digits the same way? I don't know, maybe. Hey, Mark, how you doing? You just caught me at the end of the stream. Yeah, it's like 10% coding and 90% refactoring. Okay, let me refresh this one. So we have this, we can change this to a 24 cage, probably breaking the puzzle. Now this has obviously the multiple components, so that I don't know yet if I want to adjust the selection, because these have a background box. which can be adjusted with the size. All right, we're gonna need a testing game with like a lot. Whoops. Yeah, that's an easy thing to happen if you have a cage selected and then you're trying to select something and there isn't actually anything to select and you're just modifying the cage instantly. But so far it seems to be working quite smoothly, and this is now becoming a fairly robust and flexible infrastructure to put the rest into. Sweet. Well, to be honest, turns out we already have a digit editing system, right? Why not use it? So I would just use that for givens. Although I might bring them into this. Not sure. Oh, one thing we haven't tested is... this won't work now, obviously, because we actually need to select which kind of component we want to create. Yeah, let me put that on the to-do. To-do, that's done. That's done. Overlay inspector, yada, yada, yada. So we have position and size now. General persistent constraint. Add component needs component type selection. So I'm wondering if instead of doing it like that, we might actually have a series of small icon buttons instead. Now I think Sudoku Studio, which should be here somewhere. Don't know where Sudoku Studio is. Is it in this one? Sudoku Studio. I wonder if that has... we had talked about it in the past. No. In the past, that they might have some icons that... unified icons that we could use. Yeah, that's what I want. Oh, there it is. So they might have icons. Packages. Where's the code? Is it in here? Why is it called packages? Okay. Public, no. Source. SVG. Symbols. Stuff like that, you know? No. I mean, I'd have to talk to them if it would be okay to use them. But I mean, I think personally it would benefit us all to use the same symbology. Yeah, I mean, it could be something as simple. Yeah, I don't know. It could be something as simple as having a button here that you have to click first, that you have to toggle like edit cage, you know? So for example, in the CTC editor, if I look at cages and create a cage, I can select, yeah. So while I've got a cage selected, it will do that. Yeah, that's kind of how this one works. So whichever cage you have selected. But while you have a cage selected, you can't do anything else. Like you can't select something else, right? So there's a slight difference there. I mean, the usability of this is pretty crap because like you have very little overview what else you have in the puzzle at any one time. So having a singular list, I think makes more sense. Although I'm already seeing the list will get pretty long. So I probably need some UI for filtering as well. So it could be that you might have to filter the type and then the plus button appears once you have a type filtered. So it could be that you have a drop down for the types. And if you have no type selected, all of them show. Or that if you have a cage selected, the plus symbol will create a new cage. If you want to create a different type, you can filter by type, get an empty list, press plus and add to the list, something like that. So maybe type component type filter for components list. Add component creates new component, either of currently selected, create new component, either of currently selected type or current filter type. So then with the filter, you can filter by a type that you don't have any elements yet, and then you can create that. It's not super intuitive, I admit. This probably we want to have resizable. We might even want to be able to toggle the list of components, because if I can get the selection to work really well, maybe you hardly ever need the components list. So you might want to tab between the list of components. Because if you think of something like Unity, you have a view where you can see a hierarchy of components, but you very rarely use it. You mostly just click on the components in front of you. So if this is done well, you'll never even need to look at that list. That's kind of where I'm trying to go to. It's kind of a middle ground, because this one only works via the list, while fpuzzles has no list at all. And no list at all is also dangerous, because like with fpuzzles, even to find out how do I edit a thing? Oh wait, I've just removed the thing. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen, you know. So you have a bit of a fear of experimentation. Now, obviously, if I can get it all working through the undo redo system, then that fear of experimentation would also go away, and it makes a huge difference to usability, I think. So I definitely would like to get the undo redo working, but you know, it would add quite a bit of complexity. Yeah, like in this case, if I select this, but I click here by mistake. The thing is, it's really just another short click away from fixing it. That's the other thing, right? It's not really a big deal. What would also be nice then is to have a kind of a diff page where it shows you everything that's changed since the last save or whatever, right? Yeah, you definitely want to undo. And then the question now is to export, right? For the export, yeah, I have to think about that a little bit. I mean, I should probably do a CTC format export first, because I'm wondering if there's a way of round tripping certain changes to fpuzzles by stashing metadata in an empty cage. So in fpuzzles, you won't, let's say, have the subcell accuracy for line placements, but it stores that data elsewhere. The problem is if you move that line in fpuzzles, then once it comes back, the line won't be in the right place. It won't have moved. So I have to then decide, do I, you know, if the line is no longer within that cell, do I throw away the data I collected? Do I try to adjust it by shifting by, let's say, a whole cell? Or do I keep the line in the original cosmetic position, and then it's up to the user to move the line twice? None of those are really ideal. All right, anyway, really happy with the progress today for this short stream. I've needed to clean up some things. I got the cage editing in it again. It's always sucky when you lose some functionality. Cleaned up a whole bunch of stuff. Got started on the multiple different inspectors. The internal structure is getting much better now. I'm much happier with it, how it is now, versus... Like, I never quite liked the subsection system, but at the time I couldn't think of a better way of doing it. I didn't think that I could unify component selection so much that it could select something as complex as a cage versus something like an overlay and so on. But I'm really happy with this implementation now. Once I have a line tool again, I want to purge all the deprecated code. I mean, we have like, what, 600 lines of code there. The component inspectors now, that's another 100 lines, or more than, it's almost 200 lines. Like half the code is deprecated, right? All these inspectors will be gone. Yeah, compare cells, I don't think is used anymore. This was used like in a very old version of this, so that's deprecated. And get draw RC is, I think, also deprecated, yeah. I mean, we might need that again for the lines, so that's why I don't want to throw them out completely. Yeah, we definitely still need that for the lines. Compare cells, though, we don't need anymore. I think compare cells was only used to see if a cage actually has changed. I need to re-render the cage or something. No, oh my god, this was only used. This was only used when I was using the selection border for cage creation, which was a very primitive hack at the beginning. All right, we don't need that anymore. Cool. Can't wait to purge all of these. In fact, we should start deprecating these as well. Does it even run like this? No. 744. Eight, 4, 3. And 1140. And properties of undefined reading query selector 513. Why is that broken suddenly? Ah, okay. If not turn. Yeah. But it very seamlessly switches between the different specters now, even when I go. So this is very much the Unity experience that people might be wanting from this kind of UI. Obviously, it's all squished into this tiny box, which is a subsection of a tiny UI inside of the UI really not designed for this kind of thing, but we'll get to that later. All right, that's it. Appreciate your guys hanging out. It always helps me with my work. And let's have a quick look at this page. Yay, look at that. I got another patron last night. Was the first patron on the new setter tier. Anybody who's already a Patreon and has committed more than the value of the setter tier, don't upgrade just yet. Let me talk to Patreon first, because I'd like to automatically upgrade everybody. Because I don't know why that doesn't happen automatically. I mean, there's probably reasons for that. Probably something related to maybe they want the benefit of our lower tier, etc. But I hope there's a way of migrating everybody up to the higher tier that is already fulfilling the requirements. Because I don't know if there's anything like them getting double, like I don't want people to get double charged or anything like that. That would be, not cool. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope I see you again later on today if I manage to start another stream. And, I have a couple of links up on svencodes.com now to keep it all in one place. Check out the Patreon, subscribe if you haven't. Check out the Discord for more puzzles and all that stuff. Thank you very much. That's it.